Welcome to this module titled Assessing On-Farm Produce Safety Risks, Performing a Hazard Analysis. This module is part of a series to assist you in creating a food safety program and preparing you for a gap audit. These videos are based off of a series of 7 fact sheets available through Virginia Cooperative Extension. Today, we will be discussing the first step in developing your food safety program, performing a hazard analysis. There are many reasons for a farm to develop and implement a food safety program. The CDC estimates that 1 in 6 Americans get sick from contaminated foods or beverages each year in the United States, emphasizing a need for effective food safety programs and more robust produce safety guidance and regulations. Market trends have shown that when an outbreak occurs with a specific commodity, impacts are felt among all growers of that commodity, while the supply chain is affected due to decreased sales and loss of trust. In response to these increased foodborne illness outbreaks and food safety concerns, new regulations have been set forth by the FDA, including the Food Safety Modernization Act Produce Safety Rule, which affects certain produce growers. Oftentimes, buyers have their own food safety program requirements, requesting that a grower undergoes a voluntary food safety audit or program such as Good Agricultural Practices or GAP audit. While there are different types of GAP audits, the core principles you will see in these modules apply to all audit schemes. Regardless of regulatory and market food safety requirements, our mission within the produce sector is to produce a safe, quality product and follow practices that encourage consumer confidence in our food supply. The first step in developing any food safety program is to perform what is called a hazard analysis. Hazards usually fall within one of 3 categories: biological, physical, and chemical. Biological hazards include bacteria, viruses, parasites, yeasts, and molds that may cause foodborne illness. Chemical hazards include household cleaning products, sanitizers, lubricants, paints, petroleum products, bulk fertilizers, and pesticides. Physical hazards include organic debris, nails, screws, staples, metal, glass, wood, and plastics. Biological hazards pose the greatest concern because of human pathogens, which are microorganisms that cause disease or illness in people. There are 5 primary ways hazards are introduced or spread on the farm: humans, such as workers and visitors; water, which includes but isn't limited to irrigation, chemical applications, frost protection, post-harvest washing, and ice; animals, both wild and domestic, including livestock and pets; and tools, equipment, vehicles, and facilities. This includes items such as harvesting knives, containers, harvesting equipment, food contact surfaces, and packing lines. One way to start identifying on-farm hazards is to draw a map of the farming operation, outlining the flow of product from start to finish. Consider the primary ways crops may be contaminated at each stage of the process. A map of the farming operation allows you to visualize hazards or potential contamination pathways for the different processes performed at each stage. In this slide, we see field production. The crop is located near a wooded area, so wildlife such as deer could pose a risk of contaminating produce, while geese could contaminate the irrigation source. Along with field production, it is important to consider risks during the harvest stage as well. You will then follow the flow of food into the packing area, whether that be in the field or a separate packing facility as shown here. Potential risks at this stage include bins being brought in from the field, packing line sanitation, workers handling the product, packaging, and storage. After packing the produce and putting it into storage, consider possible risks during transportation and distribution. We will cover all of these areas in more depth throughout the rest of these modules. To create the sketch of your farm, first obtain an aerial map or maps. You can use sources such as Google Earth, Natural Resources Conservation Service, the Farm Service Agency, or County GIS maps to get started. Once you have a map printed, sketch out the location of fields, irrigation sources, and water lines, and buildings such as packing houses, chemical storage, or produce storage. It's important to consider each crop and how it is handled from field production to distribution. Sketches do not need to be technical or elaborate. The goal of this exercise is to have enough detail to identify possible ways produce can become contaminated and consider practices that can be implemented to control the risks. Now that you've seen examples of farm sketches, let's practice making a farm sketch. Visualize at least one of your production fields or areas, including greenhouses, location of water sources, nearby structures, or land features, including trees, ponds, or hillsides, sewage or septic systems, packing areas, and roads. Use lines and arrows to show how produce is moved throughout the system from production to post-harvest handling. Now that your sketch is done, use it to answer 3 primary questions. What are the potential hazards at each stage? Remember, these are the biological, chemical, and physical hazard. What are the ways these hazards are introduced or spread at each stage? And lastly, what practices can be implemented at each stage to minimize the hazards? Congratulations, you have completed the first step in learning about developing a food safety program on your farm. There are some important steps you should complete before moving on to the next module. You will want to make sure you review the hazard analysis fact sheet found on the course site or on the Virginia Cooperative Extension website. There you will find more in-depth information on the topics we covered in this module, along with supporting resources and documents. It will be extremely important for you to apply the things that you have learned in this module and prepare for the upcoming modules by drawing out your farm, detailing the flow of product, and identifying and assessing the hazards in your operation along the way. Don't worry too much about trying to identify all the hazards in your operation. Future modules will outline potential hazards in each step of the operation. Once you have completed these steps, you should be ready to move on to the next module, assessing on-farm produce safety risks, general practices.